Good afternoon. This is Will Kayatin from the Kentucky Valley Educational Cooperative here in Hazard, Kentucky on Friday, January 17th, 2020. Hard to believe, isn't it, Fletcher?
I know. Who would have thought? Because the world was supposed to end at the year 2000, and we've made it 20 additional years. So, buoy for us.
Well, we're having a big time, and as you might guess, Mr. Fletcher Long and I know each other. We go back some 35 years to Hopkinsville High School, Christian County, Kentucky. And so we've had a chance over the past number of months to reunite and catch up. And Fletcher has a very powerful story and journey, and so I'm going to ask him to take a few minutes just to talk a little bit about himself, where he's from, what he was interested in as a young man as he matriculated to the University of Tennessee, etc., and we'll just go from there. Fletcher, the stage is yours, sir.
As you know, I grew up in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. And I went to Hopkinsville High School, and I was an honor student at Hopkinsville High School. I don't know how much of an achievement that was, but I was one. I went off to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and I started out studying business, and I learned that business required the use of mathematics. And so I thought, what can I do in math? About the only thing I can do is I can give you a third of any number. Which is a contingency fee in a legal case. So I decided to become a lawyer. So I went off to law school in Nashville and got a doctorate in jurisprudence. I became a lawyer. I practiced law for nearly 20 years, and I tried over 200 criminal jury trials in my career. So I was in court a lot, and I kind of got burned out, and I decided to work more in the media end of things. I started an online magazine that covered middle and high school football. It has been enormously successful. And through that venture, I ended up working at KRCC, Kentucky River Community Cares, public relations arm, Horizon Media. And I'm a multimedia writer there, and I work in the different modalities of the media. I do press releases, I write service manuals, and I'm also the editor of the Jackson Times-Voice newspaper. I enjoy life, and, I've been married 20 years, and I've got 4 beautiful children and a grandchild, so I'm hanging in there.
Well, you got to talk a little bit about your wife, Bibi. She's a new addition to the high school staff at Breathitt County. And your son, you got to talk about your 2 sons and your 2 daughters for just a moment.
Well, I have a daughter named Sarah Catherine. Sarah Catherine is 23 years old, and she has a baby named Julia. And Julia Bellamy, she married a fellow named Nicholas Bellamy, who's going to law school, actually at the same law school I attended.
Oh, my.
I know, I couldn't talk about it. And I've got a son named William. He's 17 years old, and he's a 2-time Kentucky State powerlifting champion, first team AP All-State football player as a center, plays for Breathitt County. I've got a daughter named Caroline. It's funny, every water William's ever consumed on a football field, Caroline has handed him.
Oh,
she's a manager. She's actually quite accomplished at it. She may get a college scholarship for William, because they give scholarships to people that are trainers. And I got another son that I almost named Oops. And the only thing I can say is you probably don't need to be fathering kids when you're 40, because I did not whip that kid a single time. He's 12 years old. He's running amok like some sort of a serial killer in the mountains, and I can do nothing with the kid. I hardly ever know where he is. And I let him do I got a charge count at the White Flash in Jackson, Kentucky. He's bought the entire town a hamburger. When I walk in there, they call him Jumpin' Jack Flash. But anyway, so those are my kids. And
that's great. That's great. Well, just back in late fall, we had a chance, because of the power of your story and journey, to take you to a school. My thinking is, doing the transition work in the region on behalf of KVEC, that it would be a really good example about self-advocacy. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to do in your 30s or 40s to make a career change. So I think that the students really responded to the power of your story, your journey, because It's predicated on being an advocate for yourself, believing in yourself, and plowing forward, chopping wood, and taking care of your family and your community, and you have certainly demonstrated that, Fletcher. But also, because you have such a diverse professional background, you are able to speak with them about different employment options and what those things mean as far as educational attainment, or just not only being an advocate for themselves and what they want to do, but persistence, perseverance, determination. Many people blanket that as grit, but those are the character qualities that are so critical for our young people to cultivate in order for them to be successful, because we never know what's going to happen in life, and we may have to reinvent ourselves. And that's something that many people have to do. You are a perfect example of that. A Kentuckian living in Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Tennessee, now Eastern Kentucky, making this your home, and you are succeeding.
Well, I like to put it in biblical terms, Bill. And Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh, but sometimes you don't get a vote, And I might not have wanted to be a multimedia writer at KRCC, but that is in the belly of the fish, the belly of the fish in which I swam, and here I am. The most important message, I think, from my journey is that through every, life's full of ups and downs, and life's full of tragedies and victories and defeats, and through it all, I had something back on which to fall. I had a good education. I was well educated, and because of that, I developed a certain skill set that is still in demand, and that will still command a comfortable living. And thank God I had that, because no one can ever take that away from you. Whatever tragedy should happen to befall you, and any number of things can happen to you in a lifetime. Make one misstep here or there, you're in trouble, or you lose your job, or you go through a depressive disorder. There's any number of things that you have a chemical dependence. There's any number of things. But if you have an education, if you have developed your mind, and you're able to be creative, like you are at KVEC, for instance, you're going to always have an ability to go out and to fashion for yourself a monicum of success. And I think that's really the central message. I've had several careers at which I could have been termed to be highly successful in each of those careers. And in each of those careers, from trial practice to being a professional writer to being a newspaper editor, they all used the same skill set: the ability to persuade, the ability to tell a story, the ability to capture the attention of an audience. And every one of these were dependent on my having an education and being sufficiently degreed in order to merit that type of a position. And so that's the real lesson. Today they're telling kids, well, you don't need to go get an education, you need to go to trade school. Well, yeah, there's nothing wrong with going to trade school. And but if I'm getting so old now, if I were a day laborer, if I had a trade, I'm worried that my teeth are going to fall out of my head. I don't know, how much longer would I physically be? I've got, with what I do for a living, because of the fact that I have an English degree, because of the fact that I know how to persuasively argue a point, because I did it in front of juries for so many years, and because of the fact I'm a storyteller, because I know how to tell a story. I've got things I can do. I'm useful to KVEC. I'm somebody that KVEC says, hey, we'd like you to go out and speak to some schools. Thank God for that. Thank God that I'm able to do that.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't do any of that though if I didn't have if I wasn't pretty well degreed and well educated, and that, I think that's the power of the message.
Well said. And there, even though there's a vacuum in the trades, and we desperately need more and more young people moving into the trades, there's still a lot of value and opportunity through the arts.
Sure.
And you're a perfect example of that. So everything was spot on, and I'm excited because our audience for this video vignette is going to be teachers in 25 high schools, 15 school districts in the eastern region of Kentucky. We're going to send it out, and and hopefully they will decide to book us for an in-school workshop. Typically, we'll do perhaps a half day, perhaps a full day, morning, afternoon workshop. So teachers, please, as you watch, if you're interested, if it's a fit at this particular point in time, let me know, and we will work with Fletcher to book him at your school.
Can I tell them something real fast?
Please.
Please book us. I need the work. I mean, I can dance. I can sing a little. You know, I'm better looking than I look on this camera. You know, I'll dress up. I'll throw on a tie. You know, give us an opportunity. Let us come present to your kids.
Yeah. The last thing before I forget and before we close is voices. Please talk a little bit about the opportunity that students will have moving forward with this literary journal called Voices.
Well, I want to say, first of all, I want to say that it's one of the most important projects, as when I was hired on at KRCC to work at the Horizon Media Center, it was made abundantly clear to me that the CEO of the company considered the Voices literary journal to be of prime importance to my job, continued employment. And so we do one every year. What it means for you, there's something prestigious about being able to say that you are a published author. It looks good on a college resume. It sounds good, you know, when you're trying to impress someone that you're a published author. And the Voices Literary Journal is people through poems, different types of short stories, all the way up to novellas, even visual art. Explain their journey. Many of us have been impacted up here in the mountains with the opioid crisis. We have people that are recovered addicts. We have people that are relatives of recovered addicts. And so the basic topic is generally how dealing with addiction, whether it's your own, a family member's. If you're living up here in the Appalachians, it's touched you some way. You know, it may have been a friend, it could have been a grandparent, but it's touched you in some way. And submit work to us. And at the end of the year, you know, we close the submission. We have a submissions date, and then we meet as a team at Horizon Media, and we go through all of the submissions. I am the editor of Voices, and I edit the work, and it comes out just like what you're holding. That is Voices. I think that's the second edition. We've got a third edition that's about to drop. It could drop today. You know, I mean, it's about to drop. And then we have you come in for a reading. You know, but it's a very it's a fine publication. It's an attractive volume. People give them out as Christmas gifts, and it's a tremendous. I can tell you as a professional writer, it's a marketable thing to say, you know, because I'm a published author, and you know, I wrote a book, for instance, or for what it's worth, the long version, and you know, it might not have sold more than 100 copies, but I'm a published author.
Exactly.
And you know, Voices is widely disseminated, you know, and you submit work. You're a published author. You always have that to say, you know, at job interviews. You know, is there anything else interesting about yourself you'd like to tell us? Well, by the way, I'm a published author. I've written several pieces of work that was published in a prestigious literary journal that was promulgated amongst the Appalachian Mountain areas, because that's true. So I really want to encourage people to get behind the Voices Project. It's terribly important. It exhibits the brilliant. There's a lot of people up in the mountains that are brilliant. I mean, people mistake that mountain people are dull-witted or slow, or, you know, they're geniuses up here. I've encountered people that are unbelievably creative, or are really intelligent, really well-spoken, really talented people up here in the mountains. And I think that the Voices Literary Journal accentuates and allows us to showcase that.
Absolutely. Well said, and that's probably a great place for us to stop. And it's customary for us to remind our audience that since we are live here from the Holler Broadcasting Studio, we'll holler at you later.
Yes, we'll holler at you later.